Welcome to Empowering Plans, a show dedicated to identifying waste and undue expense in the health benefits industry, discovering ways to maximize benefits while minimizing costs, and empowering employers, administrators, and consultants to emphasize, once again, the benefit in benefit plan. Today's episode is brought to you by the Phia Group, empowering plans since 1999. Now here are your hosts, the Phia Group's own CEO, Adam Russo, and Senior Vice President and General Counsel, Ron Peck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Empowering Plans with the Phia Group. I am your host, Adam Russo, co-founder and CEO of the Phia Group. With me, as always, is my friend, my partner here, my Senior VP and my General Counsel, Ron Peck. Say hello, Ron.
Hello, Ron.
And unfortunately, we don't have access to Jen McCormick this week, Ron. But we have someone that's her backup, someone who's not quite as good, not quite as smart, but someone that can replace her if need be on a last-minute occasion. With us today is Brady Bizarro. Say hello, Brady.
Hello, Brady.
As you all know, Brady is one of the best attorneys here at the Phia Group. He is our DC insider, so we're glad to have him. Everything I said before, just forget about what I just said, Brady. I actually think you're amazing, but we have to make Jen feel good. She's, insecure sometimes. But with that, Ron, I know today is going to be a little different than most days that we've done podcasts. I know we want to talk about threats to self-funding, but the way you want to do this is a little different than normal. So maybe you want to tell our audience about this new idea that you had of how we're going to do today.
So, our webinars are usually a little bit off the cuff. We get a little crazy, whereas the podcasts, we tend to plan a little bit ahead as far as what we're going to talk about. But today, for the first time ever, our podcast being recorded is a lightning round. We're going to go around robin, round the table. We're going to bring out some of the things that we think are the biggest threats to self-funding. I got to tell you, none of us, Brady, Adam, or myself, have shared what we think are the biggest threats to self-funding. The first time we hear them is going to be here on the podcast. Pat, do we have a lightning sound effect or anything? No, huh? That's a damn shame.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, we're going to
So
get that
Pat,
next time.
by the way, for those who don't know, Pat Santos is our producer.
Producer, engineer, timekeeper.
So maybe we'll put some money in the budget for some lightning. That might be a good idea.
Lightning round. So, as always, age before beauty. Adam, I don't know if you want to bring up what I'm sure is the biggest threat to self-funding. What's the first item on your list?
All right, well, guys, this is this is an unfair advantage I have because I am the smartest one here. I know the most about self-funding. Obviously, I have the most answers, the best answers in regards to what the threats are, right?
And now you get the first pick in the draft.
It's like a handicap. So I shouldn't go first.
You should go last, right?
Right. I mean, I'm like Brady, right?
You
Ron?
won the Super Bowl. You should be 32, not number
they should
one.
literally tie one hand behind my back, my throwing hand. So you know what? Let's go with Brady. Because Brady, he knows the least about the industry. He should probably go first. So, Brady, let's start the lightning round with you. By the way, there are no prizes. It's literally just bragging rights in the office through this Thanksgiving weekend. Brady, go ahead.
That's worth it to me. All right, so one of the biggest things, and it's relatively recent, I think one of the biggest existential threats to our industry right now potentially could be the elimination of the individual mandate. And so this is, no surprise if you've been paying attention to the news lately or our webinar last month, or rather this month, but you'll see that the tax bill that currently passed the House and is now making its way through the Senate has really had a surprising addition to it, and that addition is the elimination of the ACA's individual mandate. So why is this happening? Well, two reasons. One is it's actually very unpopular. And the other reason is that it saves the Republicans about $340 billion over 10 years, which conveniently gets them under the magical number they need to pass this tax bill with just 51 votes. So they have these arcane budget rules. They're trying to make this bill fit into those rules, and they saw this as one area they could sort of chop away from the ACA and both, please some people in their base and also save some money. And
all right, so Brady, is it going to happen? One. And two, if it does happen, is this a real threat to self-funding?
So this is a difficult question. I got to slow it down.
That's why we're asking you.
I know.
That's why it's called a lightning round.
Don't throw it out there if you can't back it up, Brady.
This is kind of like around the horn in a way. So essentially, I think tax reform itself, the bill may not pass, but if it does pass, I think this will be in it. That's the key here. The reason is because there's not really any other way they can save the kind of money they need in this tax bill, or at least no other popular way, right?
All right, so let's scare the audience, okay? It's going to pass, right, Brady? It passes.
Sure.
So what's the threat?
So the threat is that this is really a pillar of the ACA, and if you eliminate the requirement that everyone purchase health insurance or pay a penalty, you should expect that younger and healthier people will probably, in many cases, forego insurance. In fact, the CBO estimates that about 13 million people would not purchase insurance if they had the choice not to.
Now, how many of these people are currently in self-funded plans?
We don't know. That's the truth. But you can.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Somebody knows.
Someone
But
knows.
obviously Brady doesn't know.
Right, but you can imagine that it's probably.
Let's
a good
write
amount
that
of
down
people.
for his review, Ron. Let's make sure.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a better answer then. The better answer here is that many employers are self-funding and moving to self-funding, and those employers typically have, if they're startups or they have younger workforces like we do, and so hey, I might drop our plan if the mandate is repealed. We'll wait and see. The problem is that who do you have left behind in your insurance pool if that happens? Well, you have sicker people, you have older people, people with high medical costs, and so that's going to destabilize not just the fully insured industry and the individual exchanges, but definitely will impact self-funded plans because you got to pay more.
That's a great start. Ron, you're up.
Sure. So here's one that I'm sure everybody's either experienced or heard about. Conflicts between stop-loss and the benefit plan. As we are looking at situations like the one Brady talked about, the ones Adam's going to talk about, where financial stability and threats to self-funding are at an all-time high, you now have people who really should be allies in supporting the financial viability of a self-funded plan, instead being at odds. And not only am I talking about scenarios where a stop-loss carrier and a benefit plan, TPA, disagree on the payability of a claim, where the plan thinks it's payable, they pay the claims, and they're not being reimbursed. One of the biggest issues that I've seen, and one of the biggest threats to self-funding that I've seen, is new to self-funding employers who have never self-funded before. They're being sold on what is called a level-funded plan, where stop-loss is coming in and saying, not only is there a deductible where if you pay beyond it, we'll reimburse you. No. The moment you hit that deductible, send the bills our way, and we'll pay it for you so that your financial risk will never be more than that deductible. And these employers think, wow, that's fantastic. I can afford that deductible. Anything beyond it, I'd be bankrupt. But the deductible I got. They get a claim, and the carrier who's providing this level-funded program that sold this pure financial stability to the plan denies the claim.
All right, well, I have a question. So, again, devil's advocate. Is the problem level-funded plans, or is the problem the stop-loss carrier not reimbursing? Because, sir, you just gave me two answers, and this is a lightning round. You're supposed to give us one.
I tried to give
you
a
just
double
said
dose.
level-funded plans and stop-loss not reimbursing. Two different things. Pat, I think he's cheating. Ron is disqualified. I am the dictator. I have ruled Ron disqualified. We'll have to send him to a prison camp. What do you guys say?
Sneak that one in there.
So which one is it? Which one? Could you be a good level-funded plan with a good stop-loss carrier that does reimburse the claims because there are no gaps in coverage?
Yeah, I think it really does come down to the stop-loss question in general, because if stop-loss does a better job of communicating what's covered and what's not, then whether you're level-funded or a traditional plan, it ultimately doesn't make a difference.
Because my feeling is this. What you said about stop-loss carriers not reimbursing, that could be on any plan.
True
it doesn't
enough.
need to be on a level-funded plan. I think from a standpoint of level-funded, if you want to talk about that, I think what the issue there is that if there are mechanisms or if there are programs in place that are trying to appease smaller employers that don't have as many employees and tell them that they have this new self-funded program that's going to lower your costs, eliminate any reason to follow any state mandates, but it still feels and looks like a fully insured plan, that is something that the regulators can utilize to hurt self-funding. But what you say about stop-loss, listen, let's be honest. 99.9% of the stop-loss issues that we see here at Phia have nothing to do with level-funded plans. They are just gaps in coverage for whatever reason. The plan doc is outdated. The handbook is outdated. The stop-loss policy has a bunch of different, language in there that is different than what is in the plan. So you're saying the biggest threat is bad stop-loss.
I don't want to necessarily say it's bad stop-loss, but definitely they don't communicate. There's some sort of difference of opinion as far as what's
So in
covered and
marriages,
what's
when
not.
people don't communicate, it usually ends in a bad way.
Yeah,
right?
and I guess that
Divorce.
makes us the marriage counselor because they bring us in to try and save the day.
Great. So here's my point. Go ahead, Brady.
No, I
I'm
was gonna
sorry.
say, I didn't know if that was your point, Adam, because it seems like that's one of the biggest issues we're seeing is the stop-loss problems.
Right. It is one of the biggest things we're seeing, and I think that's an easy one to fix. But the reason we're seeing is lack of education in regards to the self-funding world in general. So that is my idea. In my lightning round, I would say the biggest issue we have in self-funding is that we're growing so much, so many people want to get involved. whether it's level funded plans, whether it's captives, whether it's traditional self-funding, whether it's, working with new MGUs, new stop-loss carriers, the amount of potential revenue, the amount of potential profit, the amount of money, the new opportunities in self-funding are so grand, so big, people are jumping in to the river, jumping into that lake without knowing how deep it is. People aren't educated. So many new people coming into the industry, not understanding the mechanisms, the mechanics behind self-funding, potentially could hurt them. Why? If I'm a broker and I tell a couple of my clients who I'm afraid they're going to leave me, and I go, wait a second, before you decide to go to the exchange, before you decide to go with that fully insured carrier, I have a new option for you, Pat. And that option is self-funding with a captive. And I bring you in. I have no idea what a captive is. I just know that it's cool, it's new, and I get to go to the Cayman Islands for a week.
Sounds great.
Right, sounds like a plan to me. And then I bring you in, and then something pops, something doesn't work. That employer not only is leaving me, but that employer and that broker and that brokerage is no longer going to have any business in the self-funded space because they're afraid of it. It's toxic land now. So that, to me, the lack of education is a big one. Now, audience, we all know who won that round. I'm raising my hand, right? But let's give some more. Are there any other ones? Brady, what do you think?
Sure. So speaking of toxic environments, we have to remember that in the background here, we have the problem of price. And I picked out of this really many different areas I could have chosen from. Drug prices, right? So President Trump has been rallying against drug prices on the campaign trail. He's saying they're getting away with murder. Big Pharma has all these lobbyists and yada, yada, yada. The truth is, nothing really of substance has occurred so far in his administration to tackle the costs of high drug prices. And that's really a big concern. And what concerns me is that we just nominated, or he just nominated rather, a man called Alex Azar to be the new head of HHS. This is a guy who has ties, pretty deep ties, to this industry. He was paid over $2 million from drug company Eli Lilly. That company was under investigation for raising the price of insulin drugs. I'm not confident that what we're going to actually end up with in terms of price control or tackling the issue of rising drug costs will happen at the federal level. But I do want to mention just something I read this morning about Massachusetts taking an innovative approach.
You stole one of mine. That was a good one.
Sorry, it was caught my eye this morning too. But so what the state is doing is they're requesting permission from the federal government to obtain a waiver to allow the state to essentially have its mass health program, which is the version of Medicaid we have in Massachusetts, to negotiate with drug companies directly. So this is one of the ideas that President Trump had, to have Medicare negotiate. That's not happened. Massachusetts, as is often the case, is not waiting around. Our budget is exploding at the state level, and so this would potentially allow the state to negotiate directly with drug manufacturers to lower the price and to prove that their drugs are actually the most effective drugs for a particular ailment that's facing a consumer in the state. So we'll see.
So in one sentence, what's the threat?
The threat is that rising drug costs could sink self-funded plans. We know this. That's the threat.
Now, guess what, Brady? Good news for you. Okay, one, I'm still in this round. Unfortunately, Ron, you're not in this round anymore.
Yeah.
Ron, while you guys are listening, Ron passed me a piece of paper. You know how Ron said at the beginning that none of us looked at what our threats were, right? No one's going to believe it. Ron's second threat was employers aren't being adequately warned or educated. So I stole Ron's answer.
He swooped in and took that draft pick from
but
me.
That's
so
why
now
I'm the CEO.
I'm gonna have
that's
to pull,
why you work for me.
I'm going to have to pull a Belichick here and just pick someone from the 8th round with my second round pick.
And let's see if you can do it, Ron. You literally have no more thoughts on paper. So lightning round.
It's funny.
What is it?
I think one of the biggest threats, and it's funny because Adam went.
Everything's funny. He hasn't given us an answer.
Adam went and disrespected me by stealing my draft pick. I think disrespect is actually a big issue in self-funding, particularly disrespect for the plan document. What's happening in our industry today is that all of these vendors are at these conferences and they got the cool handouts, and I'll be the first one to tell you I bring an extra duffel bag just for all the squeezy balls and pens and highlighters and stuff. My kid loves it. I love it. Everybody loves it. But the problem is that for all of these flashy, cool programs and cost containment programs, and I'll be the first to tell you, we're innovators, right? We're disruptors. We like to put out these new products and ideas and services to contain costs. The problem is everybody keeps forgetting good old standby plan document in the back corner. And the problem is that more and more you reach for these interesting new cost containment programs, medical tourism, reference-based pricing, you name it. If you forget to respect the plan document and adjust that foundation of the plan and don't make your plan document match that program, whatever it is, you're going to find yourselves not only unable to implement and use that program, but if you try to do so, you may potentially be looking at a fiduciary issue as well.
You just stole my second pick.
This is crazy.
I was about to say fiduciary duty. I am concerned. Great answer, Ron. My concern, when you started with Plan Doc, I'm like, don't say the word fiduciary. Please don't say it. But you did. My big concern was fiduciary responsibility, breach of it. Because if you look in the 401k world and what's happening now with Nordstrom's, right? It just came out. The point is, when is that employee going to show up and say, my employer, my self-funded employee benefit plan has mismanaged my funds. They paid that out-of-network claim at 100% of bill charges. Whose money is that that's being spent? It's the employee's money.
Sure.
It's their hard-earned dollars. That real class action opportunity by some plaintiff attorney, to me, is a real threat to self-funding. So great point there, Ron. But I might beat you still. We'll have to see if the audience agrees. So because Ron stole my second pick after I stole his second pick, I'm going to reach down and do a free agent draft.
Whoa.
I'm going to pick someone that wasn't drafted at all, and I'm going to talk about consolidation. The carrier market. Let's be honest. If you're a self-funded plan, right now you can purchase StopLoss from all these different parties, right? So there's two fees that a broker and a plan look at. One is, what is the admin fee to process the claims with my administrator? And second, what is a stop-loss fee? Mm-hmm. Well, you realize in the ASO environment, stop-loss and the administration are through the same company. So it's really easy for an ASO carrier-type organization just to say, you know what? I'm going to slash my stop-loss prices in half. I'm going to slash the premium by 2/3. And all that money now is hidden in the admin cost. So that if you're a broker and you go, well, I can go at XYZ TPA versus this, carrier organization. But you know what? That carrier organization, they're not lasering. They offered me my premium for stop loss at 1/3 the price. I'm going to have to go with the carrier. Because of their size, because of the breadth, because of the fact that they are trying to sell additional products. Most people don't realize, but most carriers, the customer isn't just the plan or the employer. The customer is also the facilities as their networks, network access. So they're making money either way. As long as they get people on the train, they can sell goods to the customers on that train. So unlike the self-funded space where you need people to join your organization, you need employers to buy in, and then you make your money on your admin fees, in the carrier fully insured world, there's a lot of different ways for them to make money. If they get you hooked, they can still have a revenue stream. And that, to me, the consolidation that we're seeing across the industry is a real threat potentially to self-funding, because the more consolidation you see, the less innovation you see, the more opportunity there is for a single payer world, for more people to look at the fully insured world as an option. Guys, great answers. I love everyone's answers. Ron, you stole from me. I steal back from you. But that's all the time we have for today. I think everyone liked this round-robin lightning round approach. I think it might be something we do again. So for all of you listening out there, we want to say happy Thanksgiving. Kiss your kids, kiss your wife, kiss your husband, kiss your family. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy Thanksgiving holiday and be thankful for what you have. On behalf of Brady, Ron, Pat, and myself, thank you so much for joining the Phia Group here with Empowering Plans. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.